Uh, Thanks for joining in. We're just going to start with what the topic for today is going to be about. So I'm going to be introducing design thinking and UX research in Africa. So we're going to be talking about what design thinking is, what UX research in Africa really entails about, and why it's even needed in Africa. So my name is Sasha Enna Osiadio Ofori. I am Ghanaian and I work remotely as a UX researcher for UX Design. And at UX, I work as a UX researcher, as a design thinking training coach or facilitator. And I also work with, do usability testing, other trainings for companies and such. As we're going on, I'm sure you might have some familiarity with some of the things that I might be sharing. And if you do, I would love for you to unmute your mic and just share with me, as today's session is going to be very interactive with a lot of questions and discussions too. So I'd love to hear from you as to what parts resonate with you and what questions you might have or whatnot. Okay. Okay. So just a little bit about my company before we move on. I work for a company called UX Design. We are based in Senegal, Dakar, Senegal. And we launched in May 2016. And we have the vision to create African products using African research. So essentially what we are doing is to throw more light on different issues in Africa, by having an in-depth insights using research. Usually the structure of the company is such that we have two segments, that is the agency aspect and the academy aspect. So the agency aspect works mainly with clients, people who come to us with research work and wants us to do their research work for them. And the academy side also deals with other clients who would want us to train them in design thinking skills, human-centered design skills, UX research skills. So those are the two different aspects we have at UX Design. Currently, we have a team of about 40 full-time researchers scattered across the length and breadth of Africa. So we have some of our teammates who join remotely from Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, Benin, Senegal. We have some of them also in Eastern Africa, such as Rwanda, and I believe Kenya recently. So we are widespread across Africa, and we even have some people in Canada and the US, I believe. So in terms of our client scope, we have worked with large tech companies and also local startups, because we believe this is where our mission shines best, making design more accessible to everyone in Africa. So on the list here, you can see some of the logos of the companies that we've worked with. We've worked with Meta, Square, Wikimedia. Those are some of the really large corporations that we've worked with so far. But we also really center on a lot of the local startups that are dealing with or trying to impact the African society positively with some of the products they are producing. So what are the objectives for today? There are going to be three simple objectives for today. The first one is to understand the concept of design thinking and its value. The second one would be examining the posture and power dynamics in research. So what are the different skill sets you have to have when doing research? Having the knowledge of power dynamics when you're going into the field, understanding how to use your power to be able to gain insights from the field, but not making the users or the people feel inferior to you. So I would like to also talk about that. And the last point over here is analyzing and presenting data collected from the field. So we'll be looking at what are some of the tools or visual representations that we could use to share some of the insights that we get from the field. Okay, so just a question to you, Rebecca or Linda. What do you think HCD stands for?
Is it possibly human-centered design?
Okay, and do you have any idea about human-centered design? Have you interacted with it initially? Can you tell us any of your experiences here?
So I'm sure you're also familiar with instructional design, and we cross paths with the psychological foundations of how humans perceive information and use it. And so not in the same, the phrasing might be different, but because we talk more about learner-centered instruction. Okay. So when we're designing, not just designing, content-based, like how I am going to teach, or we're going to cover this and that, but what do the learners need? What is relevant to them? What do they need to access it?
Okay, I think that really makes sense. I think that deals more with the academic side of things. Would you say that is correct?
Yes, that is correct. Because instructional design is more, as you would say, the academic side of things. And then you guys are like, okay, that's great. But then as they're, using it, the entire experience, how's that gonna work?
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. I can see somebody else joined, Sunny. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. You're welcome to the presentation. We just actually started, so you've not missed a lot. We're just discussing what HCD stands for, and I will be able to expand on it as we go on. Okay. So what is HCD? As Rebecca rightly said, HCD is really solving problems innovatively with the user in mind. So over here, we are really trying to understand the behaviors, the emotions, the feelings, the actions of the users. We are really trying to understand those things to really create impactful solutions from them. So over here, we are really encouraged to ask a lot of questions. We are also encouraged to really question our assumptions about certain problems that we are trying to tackle in the community, and also test some of the ideas of the solutions that we've been able to come up with in the community. So it's such that you question the problem, you have a problem statement, you question it, you also have your own personal assumptions about the problem statement. You also lay all of that down, but you really want to understand the question or the problem from the users. So that's when you go out into the field, really interact with them, really get to understand what is really happening, what are some of the solutions that they've actually tried to use to solve the problem, and how can you help, right? So we're really taking the posture of, I really want to help. Let me try to get your feedback, and I am here to help, or I am available to help. So that's the posture of HCD or design thinking. Usually HCD and design thinking is used interchangeably. So throughout the presentation, if I use it interchangeably, it's really meaning the same thing, okay? So as I said in the previous slide, the process of HCD is really centered on humans. So the focus is on their behaviors. We want to really identify what brings value to them. We want to also understand what isn't enough for the people. What have they done? And really want to understand why people don't do what seems logical. So you go into a community, there's a problem that you have identified, you probe to see if this is actually a problem in the community. But for you, in your thinking and from your background, you are assuming it should be done in this way. But then in that community, it's not being done in that way. So over here, we are really trying to understand, why aren't they doing it the way you are thinking, and what way are they doing it, and what is working best for them, right? So over here, as you see in the picture, the user is the center of everything. We always have to keep the user as the center of everything, because it's from the user's point of view that we are using to solve their problems. In a case where you go into a community and you come up with your own problem, you solve your own solution, and you give it to the people in the community, and they do not find value in the solution, you've wasted a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money. And these are resources that you really want to make efficient of. Okay. So the other thing is, you are not the user. And most of the time we get into the loop of, we find a problem and we are essentially asking ourselves, what would we do in this situation, especially when we aren't facing the problem firsthand. So you are not the user. You need to go out there and find who the user is. Sometimes the actual problem that you've been able to identify might apply to you in certain ways. But as the researcher or as the designer working on the problem, sometimes it's really good to take your emotions out of the problem and really find out what other people are feeling about it. Because you might have one perspective about the problem, but other people have so many other perspectives about the same problem that you are not aware of. So we have a good quote here that says, know thy user and you are not thy user. So you might be a potential user, but because you are the main researcher or you're part of the team in the research project, it's really good to really disassociate your emotions or your feelings or your behaviors on that particular problem from the other users. Okay. So why is UXR important in emerging countries, or why is HCD important in emerging countries? So it's important in emerging countries. When we say emerging countries or developing countries, countries that are currently developing economically and haven't really attained the full scope of development yet. So we'll center most of our discussion on Africa or some of the African countries. So why is HCD key in emerging countries? So the first point that we have here is, problems and behaviors are very locally specific. In a case where we have one problem, we can have the same problem, the same problem statement, but there are different nuances that happen in different locations or different communities or different countries. And even if you take one country and you're looking at the same problem, it can differ from community to community, from tribe to tribe, from religion to religion. And these are the different nuances that you need to sort of research or design for. So you cannot just take somebody's problem statement that happened in another country, or let me just put it, in another community even within the same country, and just assume that it would be the same for this community. Right? So it's always good that even though you have your own assumptions that, okay, I worked in this company or in this community and this was a problem, this is the same problem in this community, so this should be the solution that, this should be the solution that we should use for this community. That doesn't really work out well every time. So that is why we have to have like research skills for these different nuances that prevail. And in most of these different African countries, or some of our different communities in the African countries, there's low trust in technology and organizations that's really coming from the West. So you really want to go in to try and understand what's the problem they are facing and how to help impact their lives positively. The other problem is there's low literacy and digital literacy in some African countries. So in this case, it's very difficult for you to just say, I'm going to create a bunch of questionnaires and just send it to a group of people for them to fill out. For example, if you're working with farmers within the rural regions in maybe, let's say for Ghana, it's very difficult for you to say, okay, I'm just going to create a bunch of questionnaires. Let me just send it to them via their phones and they will fill it out. First of all, most of them don't use smartphones. They use feature phones, which are smaller phones that don't have like a bigger screen. So you sending them these questionnaires might not really help. And second of all, there's low connectivity and access to information. So you might share it with them, but because of network issues, they might not even receive them. So usually it's really good to, if you're working within the rural regions of Africa, it's really good to go to those places. If you have the resources to go to those places, spend some time with them, really get to know and understand the problem that they're facing and how to really help them with that. The last one I think would be tied to the first point that I mentioned, where we said problems are specific to different communities. And sometimes products that are produced are essentially imported from different countries into the community. And when such things happen, it's less relatable for people to be able to use it. So in a case where, let's say there's an app that works in, let's say Nigeria, and it's in Yoruba, their language, when you bring it into Ghana, you need to find a way to translate it into the Ghanaian local language, or find the different Ghanaian local languages that really resonate with your specific users, and translate that app into those languages, right? So it becomes more relatable for the people to use your products that you have imported, all right, but you've tweaked it to serve the community that you have imported into. Okay. So what are the basics of user experience research? So we have quantitative research, and this is more on talking about how much, how often we're looking at trends, population size, and we are looking more about the numbers. So in this type of research, we're really looking at, we are sharing like surveys, questionnaires, forms. We're looking at the analytics behind the problem that we are trying to understand, right? So even from the name, it says quantitative, quantity. So you'd be able to sort of remember that it deals with a lot of numbers. The next one that we have is qualitative. So for qualitative, it's also derived from the word quality, which would mean we want an in-depth understanding into people's behaviors, people's actions, people's behaviors, really. We want to really understand why they're doing what they're doing, right? So in this, we would be doing using tools such as interviews, observations, shadowing. These are some of the ways of really getting very deep insights of certain user behaviors and certain user actions, their frustrations, their needs, their wants. We really want to get in depth with people. So for today's session, we're going to really focus on qualitative research and really how does that really flow? What are the processes that go through when we are talking about qualitative research? So in terms of the overview of qualitative research, the first one is we are talking to people. So over here, we are really interacting and interviewing users. We want to really understand their point of view. The other thing, we you could also do is to observe or shadow or user test with some of your users. So over there, in terms of observation or shadowing, you go into a community, right? And you sort of observe them in their natural state, and they interacting with people, they going about their day-to-day activities without making yourself very known. Because the thing with human beings is that once I see that you're watching me, most of the things that I do would have changed, right? So you really want to keep a low profile, so you really get to understand what do these people do when nobody is watching. So the last one is trying it out. So you want to walk the user's journey as a customer. What is the experience like? So if you are looking at maybe, let's say, water shortage within a particular community, you want to, when you're doing like a try it out service, you want to be able to go to the different water sources that they have in the community. If they fetch it with a bucket, you fetch with a bucket too. You also walk the miles that they have to walk from the water source to their communities, really trying to understand their pains and frustrations. Because it's one thing for people to tell you, I walk a mile to go to the source of the river source to fetch water, but most of the time they would forget to tell you the different challenges they face in the way. So maybe on the way to the river, they have to cross something, or they have to pass through the bush. Maybe they're not really wearing good footwear, or maybe where it is really dark and it's unsafe. All of these things they might leave out, but once you are trying it out yourself, you'd be able to understand, okay, when we get to this point, this is what happens. You take a mental note of it. When we get to this point, this is what happens. You take a mental note of it. So you get a better holistic understanding of their experience, and really getting that kind of insight really helps you step in their shoes, and really helps you to be able to come up with different solutions with them and for them. Okay. Please stop me at any time if you have any questions. At any time if you have any questions. I'm wondering, Sunny, do you have any questions yet? I think you just joined in and I'm not sure if you got the initial information. If you could unmute yourself, Sunny. Okay. Sunny, if you can hear me, you can also post in the chat box if you understand everything that we are going through today. And I can see other people have joined. If you have any questions, kindly leave it in the chat section or the Q&A box, and I will be able to respond as we go on, okay? So what is the process of qualitative research? We're going to really look at the different processes that entails in qualitative research now. So I have broken this down into two aspects. So we have design thinking and design doing. So the design thinking aspect is, it precedes the design doing. And this is like a three-step phase where we start from planning, exploring, defining. So in the planning stage, this is where we are going to look at, okay, what is the problem that we want to solve? What is the problem that we've identified and we would want to go ahead to solve, right? So that's where you gather your team, you look for the problem, you look for the users, you really try to understand who are we trying to serve, the different stakeholders that are involved, you get all of that put down, you look for where are the users location, where do they live, where do they work, trying to get a holistic understanding of the users and planning for the research ahead, right? So the exploration phase is more about, okay, now that we have all of the insights, we want to explore, we want to go into the field, we want to start doing observations, we want to really understand what is happening. So we are going into maybe the rural areas, we're going into the urban areas, because that's where our target users are. We're going to meet them where they are and try to ask them questions, why questions, so that we get to understand their thinking behind some of the problems and their frustrations pertaining to the problem that we are trying to solve. In the definition stage over here, we've gotten the insights from the field, and we are trying to sort of synthesize the information, put them together that in a way that really makes sense, analyze the information, because essentially when you come from the exploratory phase, there are a lot of insights, a lot of really interesting things. But during the definition stage, you're able to assess your insights that you got from the field with your goals for the research, right? So what is the goal for my research? My research is to find out X, Y, and Z. And these are the insights that ties into the goals that we are trying to look for. So you try to synthesize the information and be able to share it with your team or with your clients or with the other stakeholders that are involved. The next stage, that is the first stage of design doing, is the ideation phase. So over here, you've been able to go into the field. Now you've analyzed your information. What do you do with the analyzed information? So over here at the ideation stage, you want to be able to come up as a team, whether your internal team or you working with the stakeholders or you working with even some of the users, coming up with ideas on how to solve this problem, right? So it's always best to be doing this with the users in a way that makes it very inclusive. I think that's the word. So in the ideation stage, you are doing brainstorming of ideas. This is the problem that we have. These are the insights. And this is the goal that we are trying to achieve. How do we let all of these tie together to come up with solutions? So whether you have your teams, your users, your stakeholders, whoever that is needed in that kind of meeting or workshop to come up with great ideas, fantastic ideas, you need them there, right? So now that we have the ideation stage, we'll move on to the second stage of design doing, which is the prototype phase. And over here, we are really trying to see, okay, we've been able to go through all of this process. We have some set of ideas, wonderful ideas, crazy ideas, fantastic ideas. We have all of these ideas, but we need to test them out in the real life with the real users, with our target users, to see if some of these ideas that we have are feasible, whether they are sustainable, whether they are scalable. All of those kind of things have to come to play. So with the prototyping, we are looking at building maybe smaller versions of the products that you are looking to share with the users, building that at first and testing it out with the users, right? So you test it out, you get feedback, and you iterate, and then you go again, right? And then the last phase of the design doing is implementation. So once you've gotten your feedback from the prototype phase, then now you can say, okay, we are going to build the entire system or the entire product or the entire service and give it to the users. But during the implementation phase, that doesn't mean that's the end of the design thinking process or the HTD process, because even during the implementation phase, you still have to test with users. You still have to improve upon whatever service or product that you're giving to the users, right? That's why a good example is that's why most of the apps that we have, they have regular updates. When you go to the App Store or the Play Store, you see a feature over there that you give reviews, and they take the reviews and they take the feedback and they go back into production, make all of those things better, and ship it out as updates for you to update the app. That's because they are still in the iterative process of design thinking or the HTD process. So really the cycle is It's really a cycle that goes round and round, really centering around the user. Okay, so I'm not going to go through the details of all of this, but these are the different phases that go on in the different steps that I explained. I've explained most of them in the previous slide, so I'm not going to go through all of them, but I think as we're going through the presentation, we'll be able to touch on one or two of them. And once you have questions, we'll be able to go like in depth on some of the questions that you have. So as I said, as I was saying, the human-centered approach is a very iterative process. So you have one process, you go to the next process, but if there's feedback that you get from the user, you sort of have to improve upon it and repeat the process. So on the left-hand side of the slide, you can see the iterative process. So you can see the ideas with the papers. So the ideas is when you come up with the problem. The papers is when you start planning it out. The third phase is when you are discussing with your team, brainstorming the ideas, some of solutions. The next phase is when you actually implement it in a prototype. The next phase is when you give it to the users to give you feedback, and it goes in a very iterative process, right? And over here, it really helps for you to have a very cross-functional and multidisciplinary team of different people, because with the ACD process really thrives on the diversity of the team. So if you have a diverse team of males, females, different religions, different backgrounds, different races that really understand the problem that you're trying to solve, it really brings different perspective, because everybody comes with their own backgrounds and ideologies. And this also helps with the iterative process. So in comparison of the human-centered approach to the traditional waterfall process, the traditional waterfall process is a top-down approach. So it's like we are taking steps. We are moving from requirements to design to, it's like a step process. And this doesn't really center around the user. So it's like, once I start from the requirements and I get to the design, I can't really change anything about my requirements. I just have to sort of go on until I get to the maintenance before I start talking to users. And usually we try to avoid that, as it's not really the best process. So having it in a very iterative process is the way that we're advocating for. So in this iterative process, sometimes it's very messy, I would like to say, because from the beginning stage, you really don't know how the project is going to go, because you are trying to get the information from the users, you're trying to get the insights, their frustrations, and you are not really in their heads, you're not living with them, you don't really understand everything. So it's like, for the first phases of the design thinking phase, as I showed in the previous slide, let me see if I can go back. For the first step over here is a very messy process. You're really doing a lot of iterations, going back to the user, asking for insights, really understanding their frustrations, all of those things. So in the first phase is very messy, and you really have to trust the process of going through it, because these steps are sort of tried and tested, right? And they have produced results for people in different fields and different industries for so long that it's something that we can advocate for. So in the beginning stages, when it's messy, don't panic. It will be okay. Once you are able to get a prototype, you're able to get some ideas, prototype, and get feedback, a lot of things start to make sense or level out, right? But for the beginning stages, it's going to be messy, and that is okay. So based on what we've discussed so far, I just want to know from anyone in the chats, or you can unmute your mic, if you've used ACD in your work without knowing it's ACD? Anyone? I can see Yao, Rita, Sunny, or Rebecca. Have you used ACD in your work without knowing this is the ACD process? You can also leave it in the chat section. So usually the ACD process is, some people use the ACD process in their work, but they don't really know that this is the ACD process because there isn't a name to it. And even currently, there's so many names for this kind of process that we are looking at. So initially, when I was speaking to Rebecca, she told me she does instructional design. Rebecca, please correct me if I'm wrong. And it's mostly within the academic sphere. So she's using ACD within academia in another way, but it's not called ACD, right? So I would like to hear from any one of you if you use, okay. So Rebecca is saying, yes, we try to improve our course development processes for faculty. Yes, instructional design. Thank you so much, Rebecca. If any of you have any other stories, you can leave it in the chat section. I can see another information. Hello, Sunny. Thank you for giving us this insight. Yes. So Sunny is saying, yes, I've used it when I was undertaking a project in my community on women's entrepreneurship. Great. That sounds great. And at that point, did you know that was ACD or you had another name for it, Sunny? Did you know it was ACD or you called it something else when you were using it for your women's projects, women's entrepreneurship projects? Okay. You didn't know it was ACD. Okay. Okay. So Rebecca, don't worry at all. You can just leave it in the chat section. I will read it out for everybody to hear as we go on. Your puppy is worrying you, so sorry. Okay. So what are the benefits of the ACD process? So the first one that is saves resources because it's iterative in nature. You are saving resource in the sense that you create value for people. You produce products for people that they have value for. So you wouldn't go through the whole process of problem solving to solution generation and have your product or your service not really appreciated by your target users or something like that. So you really save resources in terms of time, money, your energy, your mind, your brain capacity, or something like that. You really save a lot of resources in that sphere. Usually when you're going through the process, it seems as if you're wasting a lot of money because it's more of, I have feedback from the users, I have to go and change something. I have another feedback, I need to go and change another thing. But in the full circle of things, you're really saving resources, you're really saving the user's time, you're saving your own time, money, resources, and other resources that might be needed for the project. You really save it from the beginning. The other thing is that you're able to gather quick feedback from beneficiaries at multiple points of the project. So you're not waiting for the end of the project to ask the beneficiaries or the users of the project that, okay, what do you think about this process? Or what do you think about this service? Or what do you think about this product? You are doing it as you're going on with the process, right? The other thing is you're collaboratively working with your team to find solutions for users, right? So in that, you give the users or your target audience the opportunity to own the solutions that you're giving to them. It's very easy for you to just do some bunch of solutions in your office and just ship it out to people. In that case, they are not able to really fully relate to the product that you've been able to share. But if you're keeping them in the loop, getting their feedback, getting their insights, they really take ownership of the solutions that have been generated. And it's something like, once I take ownership of it, I would most likely use it, right? And that is what we want. You don't want to go through the whole process and have nobody use your product or service, because that's a waste of time and energy. And the last one is finding ways to create impactful and creative solutions through creativity and co-creation. So we're just really looking at how might we impact value in this sector, in this field, on this particular group of people. And the HCD process really helps bring that full circle. So we're going to go through the posture to assume when conducting UX research. So these are some qualities that would like to assume. The first is to have a beginner's mindset. When doing your field research, or when interviewing somebody, or when going through observations or focus group discussions, all that kind of thing, we want to have a beginner's mindset. Usually when you're going into a community, or the rural areas or the urban areas, or going into a problem, we already have our assumptions. We are human beings. We always have assumptions and opinions about everything. And sometimes when we form these assumptions and mindsets about these particular problems, it really limits us. So what we try to advocate for is really have a beginner's mindset. In a beginner's mindset, what I'm trying to say is, you're not putting away your assumptions, but you're acknowledging that I have these assumptions about this problem. I am a little bit biased with this problem in these ways. Listen all of those things down, such that when you go into the field and you realize those assumptions that you have, you'd be able to distinguish your assumption from the insights you are getting from the field. So when I say having a beginner's mindset, it's not just about stripping yourself out of all the opinions and assumptions that you have. It's just about acknowledging that I have these assumptions, but this is what we are going to do. We're going to be aware of it and take note of it when we go into the field. The second one is be curious and ask a lot of questions. The core of UX research, ACD, design thinking, is really asking questions. Over here, we want to ask a lot of why questions. So we want to ask, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? How do you do this? How do you do that? Or what made you to do this, and why did you do this? Those are the kind of questions that we like to ask within when we're doing qualitative research, right? And really being curious about the problem statements really helps you to get the insights from the field. And usually when you're interviewing somebody and you are curious about the problem and you do it in a very respectful way, the person is able to read your energy and able to share with you as much as possible as they can, right? The last one is empathy. We would be watching a video soon about empathy. I think I've spoken about this already, having a beginner's mindset, asking questions, and empathy. Let me see, I have a question here. So let's just watch the video. Kindly let me know if you can hear the audio as we are playing it. It's going to take some time to load. Can you hear? Is the audio good on your side? Anyone from the chats? No. Okay. So Linda, how do I make the audio? How do I share the audio so people could hear? No, okay. So let me see, let me just stop sharing this and then I will share directly from the YouTube channel. Hello. Okay, I think now it should work. Let me see again.
Hi, Sasha. Are you okay?
Yes. Can you hear
Yes.
anyone from the chats? I think
Yes,
I'm
we can
showing the
hear.
audio now.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So let's just go into the video.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, climb down.
Yeah.
I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put this. I had a marriage. At least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Okay. Did everybody get, hello? Can anybody hear me? Just checking if my sound is working after the video.
Yes, your sound is good.
Okay. So what did you get from the video we just shared? If anybody can unmute your mic to just speak, I think just one person, and we can move on with the presentation.
Excuse me, sorry, you cut out for a bit. What was the question again? Sorry.
Sorry, I was just asking, what did you get from the video of empathy versus sympathy that we just watched?
Trying to apply it to what we've been talking about and when we're conducting the research with the people, and as you're going, about, not making ourselves seem and superior to them, but really we build connection. It would also take us connecting with, it's empathizing with, what they're going through, validating their feelings, instead of just positioning ourselves as just the people who are going to solve it and people who are above it and people who pity them.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rebecca, for the insights. That is really spot on. So this video is available online. Maybe after after the session, I can share it in the chats and you can go and watch all the other videos that relate to empathy. But within the HCD process, empathy is really the core of what we are doing. We want to be able to really have the ability to understand, share the needs of people. So over here, we're trying to see the world as they see it. We want to appreciate them as human beings. We want to really understand their feelings and communicate our understanding to them. So when you go into the field, as Rebecca rightly said, we don't want to make ourselves superior to them. They are really the experts of their narrative. They are the experts of their problem, right? So what we are going to do, what we do when we go into the field is we're going to ask the experts about what the problem is and how we can help them. You aren't the experts about the problem. You aren't the experts about the solution. They are. And when we go there, we have to go with the eyes of empathy, really looking at how can we do this together and not how can I do this for you, right? So empathy is the core of what we do. We want to empathize with people or with our users or our target users, see the world from as they see it, and really try to understand them for who they are. So just touching on power dynamics in UX research, we want to have an idea of when we go into the field, there are different power dynamics that we go in with. I will take this more from the perspective of when we go into the rural areas, because that's where my expertise is in. Doing research within rural Africa with farmers, with people within the rural areas. So when we go there, we have different power dynamics that come into play. So there's ethnicity, gender, age, sexuality, differently abled people, culture, class, religion, all of those different nuances come to play when you go into the field, right? And we really want to be able to have a good understanding of the different power that we as researchers we have and what we are portraying when we go into somebody's space. So if you are having a research around maybe sexual reproductive health in women, you wouldn't want all the researchers on the team to be male, because then if you're speaking to females, they are not going to be comfortable. Over there, there's a negative power dynamic over there where a male is interviewing a female around sexual reproductive health, and it's about their narrative. So they'll be more comfortable speaking to maybe a female about such issues as compared to a male, right? There's also the other aspect of ethnicity. There are some parts of the African communities or African culture where some ethnicities aren't really seen as one. So you really have to understand all of these different nuances, even in age. When you go and you are a young person trying to interview an older person, you have to understand what are the different cultures that these people have? How do I speak to an elderly person without crossing the lines? How do I give respect to them within their culture, but then getting the insight that I need to use to help them or to use to come up with solutions together to help each other, right? And these are dynamics that we always have to keep in mind whilst we are doing research in different areas. So some going to a book or a clipboard or in your hand. So it's like at any point in time when the person talks to you, you're just scribbling on your notebook. It sort of takes the person aback that what is it that I'm seeing that you're writing so much. So you have to find a very good way of interviewing, getting your notes, but not startling the person in a way that they feel intimidated, right? The other one is maybe arriving in a company vehicle, maybe MTN is trying to research about something in rural Ghana with farmers, and there's like a stream of MTN vehicles that are storming into the community. Already it's a branded vehicle. MTN has a huge following, and usually this would sort of or skew the insights that you get from the field problem they are trying to solve, of course, right? So you really have to have, and I would do to information that I'm going to get on the field, and how do I reduce the biases that happen, okay? So the other one is communication, the role of language in power dynamics. So you want to be able to, during interviews or observation or whatever qualitative research method that you're using, you want to be able to comfortably speak in the language of the participant. If you don't speak in the language of the participant and you have a translator, that would be perfect. But it's always advisable to be for the interviewer to be the direct person who understands the participants in their language. Because usually when you're using a translator, some of the words or the understanding is lost in translation, and you really don't want to lose all those juicy insights that the users are giving to you. The other thing is tonation and choice of words. So we will see in the next slide just a couple of words that when you stress upon, it gives a different meaning, right? And when you're going into different communities, you really have to learn and understand the different cultures that come by in like their different languages, their tonation, pausing, repeating words. How does it play in these different cultures? You need to be able to research it ahead of time. So over here, I'm just going to read maybe the first three sentences, and we'll be able to get different meanings from these three sentences, although it's the same sentence. But what we are doing is we are stressing on one word within the sentence. So the first one we have is, I never said she stole your money, which means someone else did, but not me, right? The second one is, I never said she stole your money. So this means that I didn't ever say it. Maybe somebody else did, right? The third one is I never said she stole your money. Maybe I implied it whilst I was speaking, but that wasn't what I meant, right? So with this same sentence, just stressing on different words within the sentence gives a different meaning. This is the English language that we are all communicating with in. But when you go into different languages or different languages within different communities, some of these different nuances portray itself, and we need to be able to learn how to understand this before going into the communities. The other thing is nonverbal communication. So over here, we're looking at how are you using your clothing, how are you using your hand gestures, how are you using your facial expressions to really communicate with the users in the community. So when you go into a place and you are already maybe folding your arms or crossing your legs, maybe in that culture, it might seem disrespectful, but in your culture it is not. So how do you reduce all of these power dynamics when you're going into the field? So in the image on top, we have different people going into a different community. We can clearly see the lady on the left is maybe a white woman, but you can see that she is dressed in the local outfit of that community, which essentially shows some sort of respect. You're respecting my culture. In my culture, this is how women are supposed to dress. And because you're going there for insight, because you're going there to respect their culture and really to come up with different solutions for them, you really have to try to minimize biases to the least possible best that you can. Okay, I think I can see some questions here. So let me just pause and take it. Slide is not showing. Is the slide still not showing? Linda, is the slide showing on your end? Ofubu, is the slide showing on your end? I just want to confirm. It's not showing on your end, but is it showing on anyone else's? Okay, you can see it. Ofubu, can you kindly maybe refresh your page? Maybe it might begin to show your end as other people can see it. Okay, so let's just continue. Thank you for bringing that to my notice. So we're just going to look through a bunch of photos and sort of identify some of the power dynamics that might be in the photos, okay? So in this image, what are some of the power dynamics that we can see from this image? Anybody at all? Mind you, this image is just a small representation of what was actually happening within that space, but we are just viewing it from what we can see. What is the body language that you can see over here? What can you read from this image? Maybe Dorothy, would you like to speak? Or maybe you can just leave it in the chat section. In the interest of time, I'm just looking at time. Maybe I would, okay, Rebecca, thank you.
I'm not sure if this is what you're looking for, but well, if the first one would be, of course, just the gender. You have the male, I assume he's the interviewer, and so culturally that just might be, and it gives him some sort of power dynamic there. And then as you can see, he's more free in expressing himself freely and very confident and comfortable, and that might make the women kind of take the more submissive role naturally.
Yeah, that is very true. And if you look at the females on the left-hand side, you can see the one directly sitting by the male is just like looking straight, minding her own business, like she's not really hearing what's happening. And the other one on the left-hand side is sitting straight, but moving her neck, right? So this sort of, just from the image, this sort of portrays that I am not really listening to this interview. I'm not really engaging in this interview, but because you're talking, I might just move my neck to hear what you're saying, right? Because when somebody is really involved in a conversation, their body language shows. They lean into the conversation. They are really present with their body language. But these two individuals look like they've zoned out. One is trying to zone out, but not fully zoned out yet, right? So that's a good observation, Rebecca. We have another one here. So maybe I can take this. So over here, we have a really good play of power dynamics over here. We have all of the people are sitting on benches. It's like the interviewers on the left are sitting on chairs, and the farmers or whoever is sitting on benches. So it's like a really good power dynamic. The distribution of people too is also really good, sort of equal on each side. The interviewers are really leaning, and you can see the body language of the people on the right, that their body language is in the conversation. They are really in the conversation. The only thing over here that some people might point out is that, okay, maybe the interviewer on the left has crossed his leg, and that might mean something in the culture, but we cannot really tell because this is just a small image that depicts what was actually happening over there. So we already looked at this with the wearing of the traditional outfits for that community. So that's okay. So what about this? Anybody on this? I'd love to hear anybody else. Rita, John, Dorothy, what do you think about this image? Yes, Dorothy. I think I can see you've unmuted. Hello?
Hello, I'm here.
Yes.
Okay, so in my opinion, I don't think both the interviewer and the person being interviewed are comfortable since they seem to be standing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. It looks like the interviewer was just walking through somebody's farm and just found somebody and said, oh, let me just interview you. But then this is just a picture. We don't know what actually happened. But in research, we want to make sure that especially the participant is comfortable enough to be able to give you insights, because it might be that the sun is really scorching. The person wants to just continue with their farm work, and then like you're interrupting their work at that time. And because of all of these different challenges or these different situations where they are not comfortable, they might not fully feel free to share with you all the in-depth insight that you're looking for. So it's always good to ensure that the environment in which you are doing the research is very comfortable for both the researcher and especially the participants. So thank you, Dorothy, for that. We'll take this one too. This one is myself in rural Ghana in Kumasi. So I would like somebody else to express their opinion on this. Maybe John. I would love to hear your voice, John. Are you here? Or Rita? Okay.
Okay, I can see there's a good communication between the interviewer and the interviewee. That is you and the woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I think there is a man, I could see him writing. So what I would say is he's writing the responses from the woman.
Okay. Thank you so much, John, for letting us also hear your voice. Yes, so this could be a good portrayal of maybe a good interaction between the interviewer and the interviewee. You can see on the lower side, she's really leaning in. We're both leaning into what we are looking at on the phone, having the conversation. The only thing would be is that I think she was sitting on a bench and she might not have been very comfortable. So she had to lean on the tree. And that's something that we should have looked at when we were doing the research. So these are things that even me that I'm sharing these insights on, we've done these mistakes in the field before. And these are things that moving forward, we don't want to be able to do, because during the conversation, you could see she was really maybe struggling a bit, maybe her back wasn't really comfortable, but we were sitting in chairs with a back support. So we could have sort of changed the way or the format in which the seat was to make her more comfortable for the interview. So thank you for that. So on this last part, maybe I will do this and we can move on. So over here, we can see, don't discontinue the mother's milk till 2 years old, or there will be a reason to regret. So I'm just going to pause a little bit for you to take this in. So this is sort of like a breastfeeding campaign for mothers to be able to continue breastfeeding children up until like 2 years old. But then we have a man at the end of this flyer with a very stern look, folded arms, and standing in a posture that looks like, if you don't do this, I'm come to get you. But this has to do with women's affair, the mother's body, the mother's choices. So in this case, you communicating this is like the man is sort of communicating that if you discontinue milk until 2 years, you would regret it, and it's coming from the male to the woman, because the woman is assuming a posture of breastfeeding, and the man is at the other end of the flyer, and it seems as if he is the one giving the instructions to the woman. So if a flyer like this is going out, this is not really good UX writing. It's not really good UX portrayal. It gives the notion that the mother doesn't have control over her own body and her own choices, and this man on the side is going to make those decisions for her. And that's not what we really want when we are doing research. You really want to understand the different power dynamics and really try to remove all of those things so that most people feel comfortable. So the last two over here, I don't know if you can see this well, but I'll try to read it. So this is a cartoon version of maybe something that might happen in the field. So we have the man in the house on the left hand side saying, just like politicians who always come, just like the politicians who only come around here every 5 years. Last time, you didn't even bother sharing your findings. Go on and get lost. And these people standing in front of the door are researchers, right? Coming from whatever community, coming to research. So what we normally see is when UX researchers go into communities, they go with the posture of, I'm coming to help, I'm come to change everything, I'm come to impact your life. You're going to move from zero to hero in a matter of days. And usually what happens is that they get all of these insights, go use it in their companies make money of it, and they don't even share the insights with the users that contributed to the findings of these insights. And what it does is that it breeds a lot of distrust in researchers. So in a time when you come back again, they don't want to share with you. So these are things we really want to reduce when we go into the field. You want to assure them, is this a research that when you're done, you can share it with us in a way, whether it's via documents, whether it's via video, audio, sharing it with us to make us know you appreciate our efforts in contributing to the insights that we gave you. All of those things are very important. And this is what the cartoon character is trying to portray over here. The last one I would like to share is, usually we as female UX researchers, when we go into the field and we are in male-dominated spaces, there are a lot of remarks about, let's say, our bodies, our intention, and maybe sexual comments that are given towards us. And you as a researcher have to be able to keep your head up high and know how to navigate this. So over here, we can see the lady in the middle who is holding her file of questionnaires, and the man at the back is saying, so no, sadly, the commander is away again. What a nice frame. So he's commenting on her body frame or her body shape, right? And the man inside the police station is saying, but you can meet with us. We'll stand in for him nicely over here. Come here. So over here, you really have to understand, once I'm going into this community, is it safe for women to be in? If it's not safe, then I need to be within a group of researchers that are mixed with different genders, like they are males, they're females, and it's just not you, the female, because you also don't want to put yourself in a very compromising situation where you put your safety and your life on the line just for the insights, right? You really have to put that in mind before you go. Okay, I think this will be the last thing. Okay, this is the last one. Over here we have the lady on the right. She is a researcher, and the other lady on the left is a mother over here, and she's saying at her age she should look for a husband and manage her household. And sometimes these are the realities that you face. You go into the rural areas or you go into the urban areas and you're interviewing people, and they're all of a sudden portraying or imposing their insecurities on you. And you as a researcher, you have to have an understanding of this is the space I am going to. These are some of the things I might face, and these are how I'm going to respond to them professionally. Okay. So we're just going to move through this phase. I think we're rounding up very well. How to analyze data and insights retrieved from field research. So there are lots of tools, so many tools out there for how to communicate the insights that you get from the field, right? These tools help you to be able to easily share the insights that you got from the field with other people that weren't on the field with you. So when I say the other people, maybe some of your team members didn't go on the field research. Even if they went on the field research, maybe they weren't within the same interview session that you were conducting, sorry. So having a way to fully communicate this information to these other people is very crucial, because you don't want to go into the field, gather the insights, and you don't know how to share it with your teammates. You don't know how to share it with your clients. You don't know how to share it with the stakeholders that are involved in decision making. So I'm going to look at, I've just chosen like 3 options here. We have the user ecosystem, empathy maps, and experience map. I'll explain them briefly throughout the presentation as we are going on. So with ecosystems, ecosystem is like a visual representation of individual. Sorry, Rebecca, you had your hand raised.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to take it down. That was a while.
Okay, thank you. So the ecosystem, or the user ecosystem, is a visual representation of individual interviews. So over here, we are trying to mind map. When I say mind map, we are trying to piece out the different information that we receive from the field with that particular individual. We are trying to represent them in different themes on a map. So when you look on the right-hand side over here, where we have mind map, you can see the different circles surrounding the bigger circle where the mind map is written. And over here, we are looking at the different themes that we're able to generate from the interview, and what are the different responses that the interviewer, the interviewee gave to us when we're doing the interview. So I think we have some examples here. So this is a good example of an ecosystem. With this ecosystem here, it was done on paper. So mind you, all of these tools, you can do it on paper or using other digital platforms like Miro or whatnot, Miro, Mural, whichever one that you want. But you can just use plain old pen and paper if that's what you can use. So over here, we have the user in the middle and some insights on the side. So this was written in French, but you can see that if somebody is to take this, I know that the user, the person that we are talking about, is called Nico, and he's a 34-year-old project manager. So already I have a good understanding of who the person is, his background, his age, his gender, right? And if I speak French, I'll be able to see all the other insights are in this frame. So over here, we have another good example of a research I did with secondhand clothing, in the secondhand clothing industry in Ghana some time back last year. So over here, we have the user in the middle, and in the blue circles, I have the different themes that I was looking at. So I was looking at the kind of his client status, who are the people that he's selling these secondhand clothes to, how does he procure his clothes, how does he select his clothes, how does he sell his clothes or his sales channels, what does he do with his leftover clothes, what are the client's environmental awareness and his environmental awareness on the impact of secondhand clothes on in the environment. So I have these different themes in the blue, the deep blue, and in the lighter blue on the sides, those are the responses to the themes. So if somebody is to get this image, they just look at it and they're like, oh, I know who this person is. This person is called K. He's a 34-year-old first selector of secondhand clothes at Kantamanto, right? So the person is able to get a better understanding of who his client is, all of that information just from this. So it's more of a visual depiction of your interview notes, right? And it makes it easy for you to share these insights with whoever you're sharing with. Okay, so these are this is ecosystem map or ecosystem profile. So the second one is our empathy map. As we watch the video on empathy, we cannot take out empathy out of the ACD process. So we have to find a way to include a map to it. So we have an empathy map here, which really details the different aspects of empathy that we really want to understand. So over here on the left, you can see in the first quadrant on your upper left, you can see what does the user say. The second quadrant, you can see what does the user think. In the lower quadrant, you can see what does the user feel. And the last quadrant, you can see what does the user do. So you want to be able to piece out all of this information in this map or this image, and it's easier. I can just send this to you and then you'll be able to see, okay, when I interviewed with Rebecca or John or Doreen or Beatrice, this is the insight that I got, and I've represented it in a way that once you just look at it, you get all the insight that you need. So this is a good example of an empathy map that was used, that was done in Miro. So you can see all the different sticky notes that are representing the different sayings, thinking, doing, and feelings. So it's very easy to understand what is happening over here. So this is also a good example of an empathy map. So this empathy map was done on a sexual assault survivor. And over here, we put it into different aspects: think and feel, say and do, hear, and then see, right? So in the middle, as we are saying, the ACD process thrives with the user being in the middle. So we have the sexual assault survivor in the middle and all the other things that he or she said. And the interesting thing about this template is that at the bottom, we have their pains or frustrations and their gains. So over here, we want to be able to really piece out what were some of the frustrations that he or she shared with me whilst they were whilst we were doing the interview, and what are some of the opportunities that we can do to support this individual. So once I share this with you, you get a holistic understanding of what was happening during the field research. So this is the template that we use, and this can be, I think it can be accessed online also. So as we're rounding up with our presentation, you might be asking, I shared on qualitative research and quantitative research. What is the best approach? Do I use both of them or do I use one? If I use one, which one is the best approach? Do I use the qualitative only or the quantitative only? Remember, we said the quantitative is more about numbers. We are talking about how many people did this. What is the survey? How can we analyze this user group for doing this? How many are they buying? That we're trying to look at the number aspects, right? But with qualitative, we are trying to understand why they are doing what they are doing. So what is the best approach? In my opinion, I believe there isn't a best approach in terms of which one to use. It really depends on the project that you are embarking on. If the project is such that it's more of we need the numbers to tell the story, then you go for quantitative. If you're looking at we need the stories to tell if we are looking at we need the stories of the people to tell the holistic problem, then you are looking at qualitative research. But usually it's really good that you mix and match both of these approaches in one if the project would allow. So I would say quantitative research gives you breadth. So it allows you to get numbers of a wide array of people in terms of analytics and trying to understand what people are doing and how many of them are doing what they are doing. But qualitative is going to give you the why, so it's going to give you the depth, right? So the optimum would be to maybe start with quantitative, where you get a wide array of answers of how many people are doing what they are doing. Then from that insight, you can be able to take, okay, they are doing X number of people are buying Coca-Cola over Pepsi, for example. They are buying Coca-Cola over Pepsi, for example. So we'll use the qualitative to understand why are they buying Coca-Cola over Pepsi? What is it about Coca-Cola that they like and prefer that they are not going for Pepsi instead? Right? So a mixture of both quantitative and qualitative is going to be optimal in ensuring that you are really covering the breadth of research and the depth of research. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate all those who were able to join this session. My name is Sasha Ofori, and you can reach me on LinkedIn, or you can just send me an email if you'd like to chat about anything UX research or design thinking or HCD. So I will just pause here for any questions in the chat. I think there's already one question over here. So I think I would answer that. It says, I don't have an IT background. Can I succeed? Because employers only consider those with experience. That's a really great question. Yes, you can succeed. UX research isn't about having an IT background. It's more of a people centered job, I would say, because you have to have a genuine interest in making an impact and working with people. I think that's the only requirement. And in terms of gaining experience before employers can hire you in this field, you can gain experience in different ways, not just working on huge projects. You can decide to say, okay, this is the project that I personally want to do, and this is the approach that I'm going to do. And you are going to use maybe the design thinking approach that we just discussed and just accomplish the project. So that's more of like a personal project that you have done yourself, right? And I believe UX research is part of our day-to-day activities. When we go into the shop or when we speak to our friends about products that they are using, it's a form of UX research. It's a form of design thinking, because we are trying to understand what was their experience in using this product, what was their experience in going to this place. So for example, if if you attend or you go to a new restaurant in Accra, and your friends are asking you what was your experience about it, and you are giving your rundown of what happened during the restaurant, their customer service, the food, the music, the ambience, the experience, all of that, your friends are gathering feedback from you, and that's a form of research. So you can always present your experience in a way that doesn't always have to deal with, I worked on this project with this client. There are various creative ways of going about it. Okay, I have another question here. I am curious about your background. How did you get into UXR? So I offered computer science in university. So I have a computer science background, and I got into research mainly because I took a particular course in school that's called human-centered interaction design. And there we were introduced to design thinking and all the things that I shared with you. And I was really intrigued about working with people and trying to really get to understand them for who they are before building solutions for them. Right, so that's how I really got into research. So at first I was on the software engineering or software development route, but then I switched into UX research, which is more people-centered. Thank you, Rebecca and Ofubu, for the questions. I'm just wondering if there are any more questions before we wrap up with our conversation. Thank you all so much for joining. Thank you, Rebecca.